Welcome to the Elevator Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Madden. I've been an amazing 35 years in the elevator industry, and now I'm ready to pay my knowledge forward. Let's dive right in. Welcome, Amber, to the Elevator Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. Wanted to let the listeners know a little bit about yourself, what your professional career is, how you got in the elevator industry. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you for having me. So my background's kind of funny. I wanted to be a nurse. So I went into nursing school and I got to the point of having to do phlebotomy. And every time I went to stick someone, I passed out. So I had to, right? It wasn't working. So I had to reroute, but I still wanted to be in service. So from there, I switched to business and education so that I could work in nonprofits. I knew I would work in education eventually. I just didn't know what capacity because I didn't want to work in elementary, junior high, or high school. So eventually I went the college route of teaching. That led me on a fun path of getting to serve in just a number of nonprofits. And probably my longest bit of service was with the YMCA because it was well over 10 years and they have phenomenal leadership training there.
Nice.
And then I eventually went into business with a partner working with nonprofits that were struggling a lot with branding, how to get their finances in order, or even like startup nonprofits. And the pandemic hit. So I went back into leading nonprofits and I was with a company for a couple of years and the fit was fine, but I was a little more mission driven towards something different. Mm-hmm. And I went on Indeed just to see what was listed. And there was a foundation in the elevator escalator industry. So my husband's an elevator escalator safety guy. And I was like, you never told me there was a foundation. He's like, sorry about that. So I applied. It was the only job I applied to at that point because, I liked my other job. I just wanted to do something more.
Yeah.
And when they called me, here I am 2 years later. So
maybe he didn't want you in the industry.
Right? I had a conversation with him. I was like, did you just not want me here? But no, he's a good guy. But it was like, all the calls he would get for things like entrapments, incidents on escalators, that was what pushed me to this when I read the description. I was like, well, I have a really unique background in knowing all the stuff that can happen and then serving in nonprofits. And it's been awesome, to be honest.
That's great. Our industry is very blessed to have you in the Elevator Escalator Safety Foundation. It's a great organization. I've been part of it or involved with it for a long time, but it kind of stalled. It was a cool upcoming thing, and then not a lot happened. So we're very excited and happy that you're driving it forward and you got your own podcast. So I'm excited to see and help with that as well.
Thank you. It did stall. So in 2018, they switched from Safety Cat retired, and everyone knows and loves Safety Cat, and they brought in Safety Boy and Safety Girl. But their big release was just at the end of the year there, and then going into 2019, they were starting to get a little bit of steam, and then, of course, pandemic. It pivoted everyone, right? So I think because so many people were used to Safety Cat, that even when they were seeing safety writers, they weren't recognizing that it was still Elevator Escalator Safety Foundation because they just didn't get the lift that they should have gotten at the time. Yeah. And that was just the world that we were in.
Keep doing what you're doing, keep driving the safety forward. And it's always challenging when I see little kids running up and down escalators and I'm like, ah.
Me too. And I think my kids think I'm just paranoid, but I'm like, listen, I can tell you some stories. I'm not going to because I don't want to traumatize you, but I can.
Right. Let's not go there. But one of the things we want to talk about today, what are some of the challenges you're seeing in our elevator industry with our elevator entrepreneurs or in the businesses in our industry? What's some stuff that you're seeing out there?
So one thing about this industry is that it is so family focused. I mean, almost everyone I've met is in this industry because someone brought them in. It could be a friend, but usually it's family. And so there's a lot of second, third, fourth generation companies out there. And the skill set that is required to troubleshoot an elevator and escalator is just beyond. And these people in this industry, they truly understand that perspective and how to do that. And it's an industry that's needed. But the skill set for leadership is very different than the technical skill set for fixing vertical transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the deficits that I see is the leadership training for going from the field to going into leading people, leading a culture, creating strategic plans. These are things that, while a lot of people think that leadership is innate, it's not always innate. Sometimes it is a learned skill. I would say most of the time it's a learned skill. And so that's where the deficit comes in within this industry, is the lack of cross-company training. We're constantly trying to reinvent the wheel with committees everywhere, but the committees could align and focus more on just this leadership training needed at all levels. So you have next gen, which I think is like 19 to 39 years old.
Yep.
And then you have the old guard. Well, there's a whole set of like people that are missed in that. So we need the training starting with the next gen coming in at 18, 19 years old, all the way up through people my age, or even if I've had an entire lifetime of leadership training, having more given to me that is industry specific really would increase my knowledge and my ability to serve. And that's to say for anyone that's in this industry. I think it's easily solvable because this industry, number one, everyone appreciates everyone. Competitors, doesn't matter. Everyone appreciates everyone. So
isn't that crazy? Like you can have two competitors even in the same town helping and supporting each other. And I remember one time, a just quick story, I had somebody call me when I owned Madden Elevator Company, and they said, "Hey, we don't have enough weights to do tests." And they were a competitor elevator company. And I was like, "Well, just go by the office and get my weights." And they were like, "What are you going to charge me?" I'm like, "I'm not going to charge you. I've ran into situations before. I'm sure I'll have to call you for something. Just go do what you got to do to take care of the customer." And I think our industry focus is on the riding public and the safety of elevators. And that's what we want to do, is make sure they're safe and reliable, regardless of who's doing it, as long as it's a decent company. If it was somebody I didn't trust or know, that could be a different conversation. But most of the companies, independent companies, most of the elevator techs out there, they want to do a good job. They don't get up and say, "I want to go in and do a bad job." There's just resources. And getting back to leadership, that's often what I see is the field people move into supervision and management. I did. And I had to learn it on the fly. I literally went to Dale Carnegie classes because I had a good mentor in my boss, actually, that owned Irvin Elevator, the late Roger Irvin. And he gave me the tools and some support mechanisms to allow me to go do training. So I did Fred Pryor classes, Stephen Covey classes. I went through a long Dale Carnegie course. And all these courses are generalized courses, but I learned a ton from that. And then NAC started a vertical transportation management program. And I went through that program as well. There's a lot of good information in there, but in that information is a little more catered to the elevator industry as opposed to a lot of the standardizations out there. But it's a good point that there's a big disconnect, because I think what happens is people come from the field and they move up into supervision and management, and then they get busy and they try to figure it out. But what is a solution to help move from A to B to C in the leadership role? So I think you're right. There is a gap there that we need to work on in the big picture in the industry. And leadership is really what's going to drive all the other pieces: sustainability, reliability of elevators, having good leaders, and then keeping turnover down. You have better mechanics that are doing good jobs for the type of company you are and the culture. So that's a really good point. Any thoughts about how to improve in those areas?
Well, as you pointed out in AEC, and I have to agree, they have, just since I've started in the last 2 years, formed so many different, I know I used the word committee before, but I'm going to use it again in a different way. They formed so many committees with a focus on elevating leadership. I've been to, well, 3 NAACs now, 2 fall and 1 spring. And just from the first to the last one I went to, the opportunities for leadership growth were just enormous. So I definitely think they've worked towards filling that gap. And I think another thing is, when we are bringing someone out of the field into leadership, one of the biggest fears for the person coming into that position is I have to work towards what the employee needs. And that is always correct, right? Like that's always what we want to do. But in doing that, there's this enormous pressure that if there's any failure, it is 100% on you. And so you tend to take on and wear every single hat and never delegating out any of the smaller things that could be delegated out, or even bringing in an outside expert to help you organize those things. And we tend to, as leaders, sink. So if we start looking at each other, like you said, when you let someone use the weights, if we start thinking of each other as, I always say, tiara straighteners instead of someone that knocks off the tiara, and speaking to each other very openly about this weight carrying your entire company, carrying all of your employees, and then the burnout that can cause, I think that would really improve our leadership, because we talk about the old guard and the new guard coming in. The old guard is what got us here.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, we're still really carrying a lot of this industry. We have to get younger people in to grow. We talk about leadership, none of that will matter if there's no one to lead, right? So if we can look at the expertise of the people that got us here and start creating programs around their expertise and telling us the stories, storytelling is huge, and their experiences and the ways they failed and then solved those failures, I think we would really skyrocket further than we've ever gone. Because that expertise is just, as a parent, I'm very honest with my kids. I will tell them all the things I did wrong in life. So hopefully they don't have to also do those things, right?
Right.
But to hear it from the people that have been doing this for decades, I think would just be so phenomenal. Guest speakers at things like Next Gen, people that I'm 40 years into the industry, and this is what I learned, with nothing more than just here were my failures. Here's how I overcame those obstacles, and then here was the success in the end.
Yeah.
So I think
that's great.
Storytelling and just taking advantage of the people that got us here.
Yeah, it's great feedback for sure. I was on the NAC board for 3 years recently, and there was a lot of conversation about that. So there has been a lot of change and push to bring in speakers that can talk about their experiences, not only teach, but also tell the stories. And I think the stories resonate more. I did a lot of safety training over my career, and I usually did exactly what you did. I told all the people, all the techs, all the stupid stuff I did when I was in the field. And please don't do this, because I'm lucky to be alive with some of the stupid stuff I did back in the day. And I think we've evolved as people in an industry for sure. And people are a lot safer, and we have a lot more safety equipment and a lot more safety conversation. And that all became from somebody saying, hey, we need more, we need more. Same scenario with leadership. As the baby boomers are retiring, and we even want to get as much knowledge, we call it tribal knowledge, of their experiences and pull it into the next gen groups. And we try to bring them in as much as possible. But it's a continual battle, and I'm sure it's weighing time and cost with our new world of digital, virtual everything. There's a lot of opportunity, and I have a feeling there's going to be a lot coming in the AI world. If you said, how can we craft some leadership solutions or conversations, I bet ChatGPT would probably come up with some stuff. Have you done that yet?
I love my AI. I'm not going to lie. However, AI is nothing more than artificial intelligence. So it lacks the human soul that we need person to person. And so while I think it's an amazing tool, I also think it's something that we have to use as sparingly as possible so that we don't lose our connection. We can't build together if there's an artificial wall blocking us. And I think that's one of the things that we can look at in using new intelligence and new technology is as a younger crowd comes in and they do have their hands in tech, helping the older generations who didn't always have that tech learn it so that then they can turn around and give us all of their knowledge. I think it really is the team work on that. Let's train everyone. Even if you're close to retirement, you're going to benefit hugely from learning newer tech, right? I mean, I was out of high school before everyone had cell phones and computers. But I was just at the point where I was out of high school. So I got in early. I remember when the iPhone was invented. But
Yeah. That's one thing I say a lot of is how can AI and technology augment what we
mhm,
do? Because the world's changed a lot. There's more people, but less people doing the technical stuff, the
yes.
hands-on stuff. But that's also changed. It's not as technically hands-on as it used to be because there's more computers and technology and more video game type stuff as opposed to adjusting points on cars back in the day. And I
Mhm.
think it's changing, but it's still important to have those AI tools that can help augment it, but you can never ever take away the human connection of helping and putting all those pieces together. But you have to find a way to use the technology to help you do your job more effectively and maybe even help you do it better because you'll have little bits of information that you might have not had before.
100%. I'm pro AI, just to be clear. Actually, so I teach business courses at a local college, and I use a lot of life experience in those because I don't think you can teach business without using life experience.
Yeah.
But one of the things is I noticed when ChatGPT started, everybody's papers were exactly the same because they were all using it. So instead of saying no AI, what I told them was absolutely use the AI, but I still want you to come back with all the resources you found to verify. And then take whatever you learned from your chat GPT or whoever you're using and recreate it in a way that makes sense for you to say to me. Because one thing I do know is we don't always all have the words.
Mhm.
And so we will use AI to help us produce those words or just to
Yeah,
organize our thoughts. But I think it's when we put the emotion and the soul back into them that we really find like a really solid balance. So,
100%.
yeah.
100%. I love that. And to add one little bit to that point, it's the point of sometimes you start with a blank piece of paper and you got to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? I know what I want to do, but I
Oh,
can't seem to get started. Well, a tool like that can help you with an
I think I
outline,
lost
and
you
then you can
frozen.
start pouring your mind and your experience into it. And that's where I think a big support mechanism for it. Don't let it do all the work for you, but it can
Mhm.
help support the work and get you further along than starting with a blank sheet of paper. So I love that idea and concept you went there with that.
Yeah. Well, I think if we say to younger generations, the millennials, 10 years younger, down to Gen Z who are solidly in the workforce now, hey, you can't use this tech. I feel like that is like someone telling me that I can only drive a manual car. Like,
Right.
yeah, I can, but why would I when I can drive an automatic?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. So it's just bringing it together and learning how to balance it so that your voice is still there,
Yeah.
even when you're using the tech to help you get to it. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And I'll relate it to something from the field aspect. Everything used to be manual. We used to have screwdrivers. My wife calls them a plus sign and a minus sign, which I always thought was hilarious for the straight and Phillips screwdriver. But the whole point of that is then technology came around and then we got power tools and
Right.
then we got battery power tools. So all these things are additional tools that don't change what you're doing. It just augments it in a different way, maybe makes you more efficient and easier, which is exactly what I think AI is doing for us. And if we can find ways to use it in leadership and help develop people and help push that envelope even further, that's going to support your passion to help improve leadership in our industry. So greatly appreciate the conversation pieces around that. That's a lot of fun, and we could probably talk forever about it. But in closing, what's one piece of advice you would like to leave our listeners with, the golden nugget you'd like to leave them with about leadership and what we talked about today?
I think what I would really love for people to understand is two part. One, um, the title of manager is not a leader. It's people will use boss and leader interchangeably, and they're not. Leadership is something that's earned. It's a level of respect. Yes, you can be a boss and you can be a manager, but that doesn't always make you a leader. The second part is that leadership, while some people are just naturally charismatic, can be learned by everyone. So if you're feeling that struggle and you're feeling, I'm not doing this right, there are resources out there, in AEC being one of them, that can help you get there. And there are a ton of books, a ton of free workshops, but ways to learn how to get to that leadership level. So don't give up because you can learn it.
Thank you so much for that. That's a great insight. One thing you made me think about while you were talking about that is leadership isn't always in management either. You could be
Mm-hmm.
a leader in the field, you could be a leader as a helper. This isn't
Absolutely.
right. This isn't safe. We need to make this right and safe. And
Mm-hmm.
leadership starts with a mindset, and it can be learned and grown. I actually came from the field. And when I first started working in the field with some people I was working with, they didn't do a great job of work. I didn't know any better. And so luckily later I found some other people that did a lot better work. And it's like, oh, well, I like this better. That's what I want to do. I want to move to the right level. I just didn't know. Thought
Yeah.
that's how it was done. So leadership can come in all forms and fashion. But as people grow and they grow in the industry and they move into supervision and management and into leadership, I think it's extremely important that companies try to find tools and avenues to help them give those people enough information to help grow their own ability quicker. So I love that. Thanks for that, Amber. And thanks for being here. This was a really great conversation and great to connect with you. I love what Elevator Escalator Safety Foundation is doing. And
Thanks.
thanks for everything you do.
You too. And I wanted to tell you because I did listen last season and I look forward to this season. I think this podcast is one of those tools, just so you know.
Oh,
People hearing people talk about what leadership is a leadership growth tool. So thanks for doing that.
absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And have a great day. Be safe. Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you for listening to the Elevator Entrepreneur Podcast. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I will continue to empower my fellow elevator entrepreneurs.